Yep. Good morning. I'm excited to talk about this today. So again, happy that you're here. And if you have any questions or you want to like jump in with any kind of feedback or your own experiences or questions, you can always jump in the chat. So, all right. So the idea around validation, I a while back, I got really into Stoicism and reading up on Stoicism. And there is an author named Ryan Holiday who writes a lot about Stoicism. One of my favorite books by him is called The Obstacle is the Way. And the idea being, what if we could harness our emotions and be able to keep perspective and not be dragged around by them? And one of the things that Ryan Holiday notes in his books is that Stoicism is a great tool, but if you go too far into Stoicism, you lose your humanity. So I think that one of the lies that we get told about needing validation or a desire for validation is that needing validation from other people is weakness. The modern message is validate yourself and don't care what anyone else thinks. Your opinion is the only one that matters. But taken to its extreme, that idea breaks down. You might say dependency on validation is a problem. But in the absence of validation, there is also a problem. Because as human beings, we were never designed to discover ourselves in isolation. And the book, Michelle, is The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Stoicism is helpful until it isn't. There's tremendous value in there, but it's something that we can use in moments. In moments, it'll teach us how to regulate ourselves, how to tolerate discomfort, and not be ruled by every emotional wave that comes through. But taken to the extreme, even Stoicism can disconnect us from our humanity. So the goal isn't to never need anyone, to never be affected by anyone, to never seek feedback. The goal is to stay grounded. Stay grounded while remaining connected. And because we discover ourselves through feedback, this is actually the heart of this whole discussion today. So, how would you know if you're kind? How would you know if you're intimidating, approachable? How would you know if you're compassionate or dismissive, if you're generous or controlling? You don't discover these things in a vacuum. You discover them through interaction. And we, unfortunately, are often poor judges of how we impact other people. Not because we're bad people, it's just because we're inside the experience. You know, when I worked in addiction, a lot of times one of people's defenses was to dismiss what other people said about them, right? To dismiss as, oh, they're just this or they're just that. And I think that the biggest problem with that is that when you can't take in the feedback you're getting from other people, you have no basis. You are not a good judge, right? You can want to be kind, but if you don't show up as kind, then that's good information, right? And we're going to get deeper on this. So I'm going to stop there, but we're going to get deeper on that part because the reflection is really important. And we avoid it a lot of times if it's negative. We can avoid it even if it's positive. There's so many people who avoid any kind of compliment or positive feedback, and all of it is a gift. Tom, you avoid positive feedback? Yeah. Okay. So, look, not all validation carries equal weight. And I love this distance this I love this distinction. So think of it this way. We have people we trust, right? Respected partners, close friends, mentors, maybe some family members who have earned that credibility. And then there are the general masses, right? Social media, strangers, casual acquaintances. The feedback we get from our trusted group, our core group, deserves deeper reflection. That is where we're probably going to be more open to being able to hear what they say. Those are the people that matter most to us as to how we show up because they are in our inner circle. So what they share is something that we should really dive into. Does now, I'm not saying that what they share is going to be 100% true, but it deserves more reflection. For the masses, for the general public, for the people who are not in your inner sphere, you can look at that as more data points, right? So if 8 out of 10 people tell you that you are prickly in the morning, that's not something to dismiss. Now, the way that the stories that they tell themselves of what that means or why you're prickly or any of that, that's none of your business. But the input, what you hear, that's something to take note of. And oftentimes we become defensive because we think, no, that's not true. That's not true. And we start to try to build up evidence. We start to pull the evidence of all the times that we're not that way, all of the times that we have been really nice in the morning and that we've been really kind and that we've been able to do things in the morning. So instead of seeing that as good input and then taking it and going, okay, well, if 8 out of 10 people give me this feedback, then maybe there's something here. Again, that's a gift. I had a teacher, a mentor. She was actually, no, she wasn't my mentor, but she was a teacher of mine when I went to school for clinical hypnotherapy. And she liked to use this term, and it just kind of, well, you'll see, it just kind of hits you, which she says, she tells people when she's about to have a difficult conversation, I'm going to honor you with the truth. Now, how many times have we, and I include myself in this, not honored someone with the truth because that would have been a much harder conversation to have? So when somebody is willing to honor you with the truth, it doesn't mean that you have to accept it across the board, but it's all feedback. So why is feedback so hard to hear? I think that one reason that feedback is hard to hear because it often arrives very poorly packaged. People give negative feedback or what could be considered negative when they're hurt, scared, frustrated, and reactive. So what they say often isn't the cleanest version of what they're trying to communicate. And what's really even deeper than that is that what people say when they're activated like that is often not even a realistic reflection of what they actually want to say or what they're seeing or their experience because it is animated by their emotional charge. But if you were able to have the same conversation with them when they weren't activated and when they were calm, you would get a much more grounded and well-rounded expression of them giving you the feedback of what it is that they're saying. Now, how many people have been on both sides of that? Been the person that was given and the person that was receiving. I think that that is probably pretty universal. So the challenge is, can I hear the information without getting lost in the delivery? And that's hard. It's hard. And equally important is if I want good feedback. Now, this, I want you to listen to this part. Pay attention to this part. If I want good feedback, am I approachable enough for people to feel safe enough to give it to me? Because that is key. Many people say they want honesty, but very few make it safe for others to be honest with them. Now let's go into the positive feedback, right? So people give you positive feedback and maybe you blow it off. You squirm, you get uncomfortable, you minimize, you deflect, and then you don't allow that to settle in, which would be a great balm for your soul in those moments when you might be getting some more challenging feedback because you would have a much more well-rounded view of you because you've been able to absorb all of it in a way that's healthy. And my dog just busted in, so I have to get rid of him. So hold on one second. Odie, come on, buddy. Come on. What are you doing? Okay. Sorry about that. Um, so are you guys with me so far? Okay. Any questions, any feedback, any examples anybody wants to share? Oh boy. Michelle.
Sorry, my mouse was acting wonky. I couldn't get on the screen. Girl, what? Like, I feel like I've had examples of everything that you're talking about in the last few weeks. Without getting into too personal a detail, like the most current is actually the most reflective of what you're saying, where um I was having a really rough time and I was like in meltdown mode. And one of my dearest friends was like, can I share, like essentially asking, is it safe to tell you the truth? In not
Mhm.
exactly those words. And I was like, oh my God, of course, like I love you. And I did not want to hear what she said. I did not want to hear it. I mean, I did. I wanted to. I said, yes, it's safe. And then when I received it, it took me, like, I received it and with love, with my friend and all of that. But in the days following, it's been like I've been navigating the holding of that because all of that stuff you're talking about started to come up. Like, I am not angry. What do you
Why are you
mean?
calling me angry?
So I can just I feel like I'm literally living what you're talking about. And yeah, I've been on the other side of it as well, but yeah, I'm doing your foundation path. I'm saying it wrong, right? Path. Anyway,
Practice.
practice. I'm doing that and it's very helpful in the stopping and recognizing and going like, okay, I recognize in my body that I don't want to hear that right now. And clearly it's triggering. And there was like the instances in that same 4 day period of people being like, "Bah, bah, bah." And I'm like, well, it's like that old saying where it's like if you meet more than three assholes in a day, the asshole's probably you. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. So I had to do a big reality check on where my energy was and where my anger was anyway. So it's been very helpful. Did that make sense? Or was I
It
like,
does. No, it really does make sense. And you bring up something that I did want to talk about today, which was you said I needed to see where my energy was. And one of the things I like to teach people is when in doubt, check in with your energy. Because we can get in these little like sparring matches in our brain of, yeah, but this happened and then she was this and blah, blah, blah. But then I did that, and we're trying so hard to like parse out where reality is in relation to ourselves. But the biggest signal that you have is to stop and go, okay, where am I though in my energy in those moments or right now or going into this? Where is my energy when I'm tapping this out or about to call or walking into a room? Because when you realize that 80% of communication is nonverbal, your energy is going to greatly impact what you get back. And if you don't know that and you're disconnected from what you're putting out, you're going to get back probably what you don't want. And then it's going to validate all of your insecurities and all the things and all the little my precious that you're holding on to, right?
it's like a vicious loop? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Mm.
So check in with your energy. Check in with your energy. And then if you feel your energy's off, take a minute to just go, what's this about? What is underneath this? Because usually it's right there if we just take a minute to breathe and look at what's underneath this, right?
It's also
It,
the
I,
repeated feedback, right? It's like feedback, feedback, even like, and that's the whole topic here today, right? And like sometimes you get feedback that, well, A, you didn't ask for, but also it comes not necessarily in a way of like, here's some lovely feedback, which I did get from this beautiful friend of mine. Um, I got, but I got it in other ways that were not as nice. But
Mhm.
it was when I took the step back and I reflected on all of it, it all had the same energy, it all had the same frequency, it all had the same vibration. And I was like, oh, I got it. Oh, you know what I'm saying? Does it make
Yeah, I do.
I love you, thank
I do. But yeah, so a good example would be, let's say you're going home to for a visit and I don't know, you're trying your sister is the overachiever and you would like some time with your parents without your sister, so you decide that you're going to go early, right? You're going to go an hour early just for that extra moment and you walk in the door and your sister's already there. And the immediate energy in you shifts and you don't even know it. You might mentally just go, oh, oh, well, I guess maybe I'll be able to get them at the end or something. But you don't realize because you haven't put your focus there that your whole energy has shifted now. And then when people start picking it up, you start getting annoyed with them picking it up and mirroring it back to you because you're like, there's nothing wrong with me. What's wrong with you? Like, why are you guys picking on me? Right? What is the deal? That's what I mean by checking in with your energy. It's so important. And it's the thing that we have that's clearer than any of the thoughts or little discussions going around in our head. Remember, Eckhart says the only difference between us and the schizophrenic walking down the street, shouting at people and having conversations is that they're doing it out loud. We're doing the same thing. So, so now look, here's what can happen when we didn't get enough validation when we were growing up. And this is where it gets personal for many people. Because look, children require validation. Validation, not endless praise, not worship, but healthy mirroring, being seen, being understood, being valued. When that is absent, we can develop a hunger that no amount of validation seems to satisfy. Because the wound isn't, I need more compliments. The wound is, I never learned how to receive them in the first place. So no matter how much validation arises, it doesn't stick. It isn't believed. It gets discounted. And that hole inside of you remains. When we get too much validation, this is the side that almost nobody's talking about. Children who are constantly told they're always right, they're special, no matter what, nothing is ever their fault, they can develop the opposite problem. They lose the ability to have accountability. They lose any kind of perspective on themselves. They lose the ability to accurately assess their impact on other people and the world around them. So, in those cases, growth requires turning down the volume on that self validation and increasing the willingness to hear the difficult truth. And that leads to the paradox of neediness. People who desperately need validation often create an impossible task for the people around them. It can feel like no matter what I give you, it won't be enough. And that's heavy. And what happens is people begin to pull away. That withdrawal creates even more evidence for the belief nobody sees me, nobody values me, nobody cares. And the cycle feeds itself. My friend Donna said she made an observation that the people who need the validation the most are often the people we least likely want to give it to. Not because they're unworthy, but because their need can feel bottomless and exhausting. Where I see this show up often is that people unconsciously put their children in the role of their validator. Surely, 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 Obviously, you will love me. Obviously, you will accept me and give me the things that I so desperately want and need. But that need is overwhelming to a child, to their nervous system. They need emotional regulation in their caretakers in order to learn how to regulate themselves. But when the parent is looking to the child to help themselves feel better, the overwhelm can cause the child to pull away or even lash out at the parent, which further deepens the parent's need. And they can often double down and pursue that need even harder, sometimes resorting to unconscious patterns of emotional blackmail, passive aggressiveness, behaviors, and projections of guilt and shame. And that's painful for everyone involved. Does anybody have any experience in that type of situation? Or have you seen that in others? Yes? Okay. That bottomless pit ends up being the thing that pushes other people away. And then them pulling back is the evidence we use that nobody cares, nobody loves us, nobody sees us. So we pursue even harder. And this is why having a balanced view of ourselves is so important. And I think that, this messaging of, again, it goes along the lines of that like rugged individualism that is so promoted in Western culture, which is like, be a self-made person, do it for yourself, validate yourself. You don't need anyone else. And I think that that has led to a lot of pain and suffering. I think it's led to a lot of loneliness. I think it's led to a lot of um, broken relationships. And I think it's time to start seeing things more balanced. One of the issues that I see come up in not just this, but in anything is that our brain wants things to be really simple. We love black and white, right and wrong, good or bad, because it takes less energy for us to make that decision. And then we can get back to other things. So the idea of validation, of external validation being something that we should not put too much weight in, right? Don't take it on too much. You want to validate yourself. Just another example of that's just one piece of a bigger picture. And the bigger picture is the only way that we get to know ourselves, the only way that we can experience how we show up to other people, show up in the world, is by getting feedback and reflecting on it. So maybe what are some of the ways that you can practice this? Maybe it's just sitting down and maybe writing down things that you have heard, feedback that you've gotten over the years, and see if there's a theme anywhere. maybe sit with it instead of feeling defensive. Like you can feel the defensive, but like you can notice the defensive and you can look anyway. Oftentimes, our defensiveness is kind of like a game of Marco Polo. If you feel defensive about it, you're probably close. It's probably close to being true. Either it is true or it's something you're afraid of being true. My wallflower, Michelle, please.
I know I'm so quiet, you guys. I'm too shy for this whole thing. It's really sad. Um, Along those lines, can you mirror it also, like for the what about the feedback that is good
Hmm.
that we're like, I can't hear you.
Hmm. Yes, yes. So, in the same way as the being accountable part and wanting to use feedback positively for yourself, for your own evolution, when it could be hard to hear, it's really important to maybe list and write down the feedback that you have gotten that is positive that you always blow off. That's really important. Nobody, you can't take in challenging feedback if you can't take in the positive feedback. If all you could take in is positive feedback, then what happens is I believe you know that that's what you're doing on some level. There's a part of you that is fragile. And so it can only take in positive and it avoids negative. But that can create a lot of anxiety and avoidance because now we're doing everything to position ourselves so that we don't get any kind of challenging feedback. So we don't even believe the version of ourselves that we're trying to create by only taking in positive feedback. And the whole goal in all of this is for us to get to a place where we feel more grounded in ourselves. We feel more confident in ourselves because we recognize that all of us are on this journey and we all have our issues. And it's not about whether you have them or not. Anybody that thinks that they don't have any issues, oh, I did all that work. I did like bless you, okay? Because doesn't exist. But yet we go around thinking that we have to be that person that is all healed and all fixed and has no issues. So once we come down to earth, once we actually allow ourselves to be flawed individuals, we actually give ourselves way more opportunity to grow into the person that we know we want to be, that we know we're capable of. It's like the truth shall, I cannot talk today. My tongue feels like it's not mine. The truth shall set you free. So how do we receive this feedback? A good thing to do is if you're getting positive feedback, when you notice you're wanting to pump the brakes on it or you're starting to deflect and take a breath and your whole job is to just say thank you. That was very nice to hear. Thank you. when I was like, gosh, I was probably like 10. And this might be a little bit of a creepy story, but didn't really think about it at the time. But I was in summer camp, and all the camp counselors were pretty much just like older teenagers. And we were at the pool, and I was walking to the pool next to one of the camp counselors, and he made a comment to me. I don't know, like, you have really pretty eyes or something like this, right? And I immediately was like, "Pah," or I don't know, just like, I just threw that right off of me. And he said, you really do need to learn to take a compliment. And I was like, and I remember it was like my whole brain kind of re-scrambled. And I realized in that moment, I had the ability to see it from his perspective, which was he was trying to say something nice. And then I just like threw up all over it. And it just made it a mess. So I got that part. I wasn't comfortable, I wasn't suddenly comfortable hearing positive feedback, but I understood that my responsibility on my side, if I wanted to show up in a way that was more grounded, would be to be able to be gracious about that that feedback. I love journaling. I love writing things down because otherwise they're like popcorn bouncing around in my head. And so if you started a validation page in your journal, which was positive feedback and challenging feedback. I don't call it negative because it's just challenging because it's just information. We decide what's negative. It's not negative. It's just more challenging to hear. It's a good way to start to try and get a more well-rounded view of yourself and to see where you may want to now become more approachable. Like if I see 8 out of 10 people out there say, I am prickly in the morning, I can then take that data back to my closer trusted circle and say, hey, I've been getting a little feedback that I can be a little prickly in the morning. And they'll probably laugh and laugh and laugh because they'll be like, yeah, but I love you anyway, but yeah, you are, and then it's like, okay. And now I can decide how I want to handle that. Maybe you don't care, right? At least it's your choice. At least it's not an unconscious pattern that is running. But then you can't be surprised if you see the coffee room clear out when you walk in the morning. You're like, yep, that's me, prickly. So, how do we become people who are open to validation without becoming dependent on it? How do we learn to receive both appreciation and criticism without letting either define our self-worth? And that's what we're playing with today. Because the all or nothing approach is just It just isn't in balance. The thing about this in my own life, I got lucky. I got lucky because early on, I had all of my unconscious patterns revealed to me while sitting in county jail awaiting a court case that could have seen me facing 30 years. And what may be surprising or not surprising is that that experience was the best thing that could have ever happened to me because I woke up. Because the dream, this bubble that I had been living in, that was based on the patterns of my childhood, that was based on the stories that I had created or carried, it all went away. And suddenly it was all really clear to me. I ended up, and I've told this story before, but I ended up going to a group therapy session when I was in jail. And it was a group session. So you're getting feedback, somebody's leading it, but it's your peers are giving you feedback. And those women really handed it to me because part of the story, that little dream bubble I was in, was, well, my mom started taking me to biker bars when I was 15, 16. And then I met my partner, and then he was 18 years older than me. And then, I ended up getting in trouble because he had drugs in the trunk. And then, like, do you see, like, I have no accountability. I'm just seeing what life is going to give me. But once that got cleared away, once all that static got cleared away, I saw that it didn't matter if I was 16. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. It couldn't matter. It couldn't matter because I had to be accountable no matter what. But that was the greatest gift that I got because if I am accountable, if everything in my life is a result of the things that I think and believe and expect, running on some kind of unconscious pattern that was downloaded by my environment, then now that I'm awake, now that my eyes are open, I can start making different choices and I can start being the creator of my own life. And that is what set me free. And it didn't happen overnight. Believe me, that was a get in the mud, army crawl forward. But I enjoyed every moment of that process because I got so curious as to why do I do that? Where did that come from? Where does that feeling come from? Where does that thought come from? Is it true? What am I feeling? What is my energy? How are other people experiencing me? Is there some truth in what they say? Can I take in the positive? Can I see positive when there's so much negative around? Does anybody have anything they want to share, any experiences that they've had, or any questions? Tom?
Had to get unmuted. So, growing up, I can't remember any positive feedback from my parents. And in grade school, I had some pretty traumatic stuff happen to me. I mean, literally people spitting on me.
Oh, wow.
And I couldn't stand up for myself. Didn't have enough self-confidence to do that. Uh, so I became people pleaser, you know, the story on that.
Hmm.
Uh, but also became very concerned about having an ego where we watch egotistical people uh, that are so proud of themselves,
Hmm.
self-centered. So I worked very hard to get about not having that.
Hmm.
And like I said, for until fairly recently, it was extremely difficult for me to take any positive feedback, any compliments. It was always like, okay, that's a veiled threat, or that's uh, uh, insult in disguise. That's how I always felt about it. No matter how good my cookies were or how good I did something. Um, and I had to learn to get over that. And I can't necessarily tell you what all steps, but I did. But like you said, it's a crawling through the mud, dragging
Hmm.
yourself. It was tough,
Yeah.
but one of the places where I really learned to take that was in the service industry, taking people out guiding, well, looking at bears and going fishing or doing flying, stuff like that.
Yeah.
The people were genuinely thankful and they would give me money as tips. And I finally had to just accept that, go, you know, they gave me this because they really, truly enjoyed what they got.
Hmm.
Oh, different way of looking at it. One of the things that helps me with that is the book that you recommended that I read, Big Magic.
Hmm.
And the one big takeaway out of Big Magic is the Greeks, the Greek artists were concerned about being too egotistical when, you know, you take this block, there's a rock, and you take a hammer and a chisel, and next thing you know, you have David, the statue.
Hmm.
And the way they looked at it was, okay, I'm not the genius that did this. The genius came through me. So we can look at life that way too, is that, okay, uh, I don't have to take all the credit for this because the credit was something that the spirits sent through me, and just my hands were the tools that they used to create this good thing.
Do you know what's so crazy about that, Tom? Do you know what I listened to yesterday? I listened to Elizabeth Gilbert's TED Talk. And I don't know if you've listened to it, but it's all about because it was her TED Talk what came out before Big Magic. And she
Oh,
talks about, the shift that happened 500 years ago where we started calling people geniuses, where before that people had a genius. And then that way, if their work was great, they had help from the genius. It wasn't just them. And if their work was bad, well, my genius can be kind of lame sometimes, right? So you didn't take anything too seriously, right?
yeah.
Tom, would you like to be coached a little bit? And you have any feedback on what you said, or are you good?
Oh, yeah. I'm listening. Oh, um, as an aside,
Yeah.
I've been developing a relationship we have with Katrina Hayes, and she said to say hi this morning.
Oh, tell her I said hi.
She is one of the coolest people.
She is. She is one of the coolest people. Um, so I just made a couple notes when you were talking. You said that um, you were bullied in school,
Yeah.
and that the way you see that is that you didn't have the self-confidence to stick up for yourself. So I want to invite you to maybe change the way you see that. Maybe it wasn't that you didn't have the self confidence. Maybe it was that you were outnumbered. Maybe it was that it was dangerous. Maybe it was the best form of self protection was to not react, that was what kept you safe.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Thinking about the parenting that I got, the best thing to do is just keep quiet.
So when you tell the story now, the story has to shift. It can't be that you didn't have the confidence. It was that this was what kept you safe, that this was your brilliant, adaptive child that assessed the environment, the situation, and said, this is what we're going to do to be safe. Do you feel that that's different?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And well, part of that too was um, the fear of not having any friends, not being part of. I mean, we're such social animals. We're
Yeah.
herd animals as bad or worse than horses are. And there was a
Mm.
time when I literally had no friends at all, including parents. I had nobody, and that's a really bad place to be.
Of course it is. But look at you. Look at how well you did.
Yeah,
You became a pilot. You did all these amazing, you've done all these amazing things in your life. You have this large group of friends. That was a moment, a hard moment, a
yeah,
painful, lonely moment, but not a reflection of you.
no. And that's one of the ways I can take compliments now as I look back on what I've done with my life. I was like, come on, you try and do part of what I've done.
Yes. So that's a good lead in to when you mentioned that one of the things that was very important to you was to not have a big ego because you saw how damaging that could be, right? The problem is that the ego is very sly, and you can develop an ego around the fact that you're a person that doesn't have an ego,
I did that.
right? And then we look down on other people. I can see your ego. I don't have an ego. I can see yours though. Yours. So what happens when we have an ego is that we need to defend it, right? Where we want to get to is that we don't need to convince anyone of anything. They can think whatever they want as long as we like us, as long as we like the way that we handled something. And this is why what we're talking about today is so important, because when you can take in information and make those decisions about what you're going to give attention to and what you're going to change, you feel way more like you're grounded into the earth, that you understand who you are, like you're way more resilient, you're way more clear. Where when we defend or avoid, we're very fragile. So anytime that this feeling of needing to defend or needing to push back comes up, it's just a great moment to check in. It's just a great moment to use that Why do I feel like I need to do this or say this? What is the thought or the feeling underneath it? Because being defensive actually ends up weakening our connection to ourselves.
Yeah. One of the things I've been working on this for 50 years. Because my first girlfriend slash wife left me, and um,
Probably got a
right,
lot of feedback.
yeah,
Lots of feedback there, Tom.
yeah. She basically what happened was she took my life and shattered it, and I had to find all the pieces and put them back together and build a new me. But recently, since we got involved with this crowd, the Shillers, and the podcast, all that, listening to Josh Nichols, he finally said something that got through to me and made me be able to deal with the demons. Uh, the way he put it is, when those demons are attacking you at night, you're laying in bed and you've seen all the things that are wrong and all the things that are bad. That's a story, and you're telling a story. You're the one that has control over it. So if you don't like the story, you change it and you shut that story off and you start telling the story that you want to hear. And when I was able to do that, it's a whole new world. Just absolutely amazing.
Yes. 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 And look, I am a stickler for words. I admit I am a stickler for words because words, it's like when they say spelling is the same as casting a spell. The words that we use that can sometimes reinforce what we don't want. And personally, I would not choose to call anything that goes on in my head a demon. I would call it the voices that are scared, the voices that are trying to protect me, the voices that constantly scan for danger, that beat me up because they want me to do the things that they think will avoid more danger. Right? So we
You're
got to get
changing the
you in
story.
line.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
changing the story. Perfect.
Yeah. I don't want to fight demons, but I do know that Dick Schwartz talks about the internal family system. And I'm imagining, I could be wrong, but I'm imagining what would be framed as a demon is actually a manager. And managers get formed when you get hurt. Mostly they're formed when you're a child. So let's use the example you already gave. You're being bullied, and that was really painful. And so a manager was created out of that. And the manager said, okay, stop doing this, stop being so stupid, stop doing that. Because if it managed you, then it's going to do and tell you anything it needs to get you to make choices that don't involve you getting bullied. So if there's a part of you that sees a new kid came to school and you're sitting there in the playground and you're like, I want to go up and talk to him and maybe he'll be my friend, that manager might go, don't be stupid, Tom. You know what? He'll just lie to you and he'll pretend to be your friend until the other kids like him, and then he'll dump you, and then you'll just be an idiot. And it just says horrible, mean things to you, not because it wants to hurt you, but it thinks that it's protecting you. It's not a demon. It's an overzealous part of you that when you had no dominion over your choices in life. We don't have any choices as children. Every aspect of our life is in the control of adults. So we have to come up with these ways to navigate that. But those things, when we drag them into our adult life, they often, very often work against us. That's just a part of you that was trying to keep you safe by talking to you badly, by making you afraid, so that you didn't do things that got you hurt before. It's not a demon.
Yeah.
But we got to take the power back. And the way you do that is instead of fighting, you go, look, I see what you're doing. I know you're scared, but I got this. I don't need this anymore. Go find a better job. Go find a better job. Help me be more social. Help me feel better in my body when I am social. Get a better job. Okay?
Yeah. Love it.
Good. Let go of your demons. It's that kind of call today.
Actually, if I'm going to call them demons, as far as I'm concerned, they're no match for me anymore.
Nice. They just don't energetically align anymore, right? They're just going to fall off because you're building the positive and connection, and they're just automatically going to go away. No
Yeah.
need to fight.
I I probably haven't posted enough for you to have followed me, but I just did an 11-day trip with a friend that bought an airplane down in Spokane, Washington, and we flew it. It's a very slow airplane. It's a 2,500-mile trip by car. It took us 37 hours of flying. You can do the math. But along the
Wow.
way, it's like every turn there was something that went wrong. And after a while, we just laughed about it. It's like, you know what? The universe is throwing all this at us, but the universe is no match for us. It was cool.
Nice. Nice. But that's the thing. We are creators, right? We are
Yeah.
creators. And when we tap into that, everything changes. So, in closing, what I'll say to you guys is if this stuff is what you're working on, right? Thank you for being here. Thank you for participating. Thank you for being a part of this community. I know a lot of people watch these recordings when they're done and get a lot of feedback on them. So I thank you for being a part of it. And if anyone wants to start looking more deeply into their own patterns and start creating the life that they want with actionable tools, open enrollment for the Path to Freedom practice starts June 29th. So this is a membership community. This is where I'll teach you the tools you need to practice and get supported in your day-to-day life in applying them. So the feedback that I've gotten so far on this has been better than I had even hoped for. And I'm chomping at the bit to open this up again for more people to come in. So what I've heard back is that people are having better engagement at work. Their relationships are even more easy and deeper. And more importantly, the way that they are seeing themselves and the people in their lives are shifting. Like their whole lens is starting to shift. So go to my website, christinedixonmentor.com. And if you go to the Work With Me page, you'll see there's a button you can click on for the Path to Freedom practice, and you can get more information there and get on the wait list. This was really good. I hope that everybody feels like there's a part of their mind that has just come awake, like a lens that's going to now start going into the world and start to see things differently. And I love feedback. Me, love feedback. So if you guys have any feedback on how this lands for you, on what your practice is or where you get stuck or any of it, I'd love to hear it.